read in the preface of your book, you wrote that for decades, people have been told, as you were just saying, that depression is a biological condition and that antidepressants work and save lives, as if these are indisputable facts. They are not. You write, and you write, as I show in this book, these beliefs are part of a myth, one that was constructed and is maintained to further various vested interests and bears little resemblance to the scientific reality. And so, one of my questions, especially as we consider how much pushback is an understatement. I mean, the extreme resistance that you were met with upon publishing this, that leads me to the question: who are these vested interests that benefit from the myth of the chemical imbalance?
Very good question. So, of course, the pharmaceutical industry has done very well out of this idea. And the pharmaceutical industry are primarily responsible for having inculcated it into popular belief, having persuaded us all that this is, a real fact. But the pharmaceutical industry are not terribly invested in antidepressants anymore. Most of them are now off patent. And are not being heavily advertised or promoted. They've moved on to other conditions. So what's becoming apparent now is that the people who want to defend this myth are a section of the psychiatric profession who want people to believe that depression is a biological condition. They probably have good intentions. I'm sure they think that that's, I'm sure they believe that that is the case. But what really concerns me is that they don't really want people to know the poor state of the evidence to support that idea. They don't want people to know that actually there's very little evidence to support that idea. And in fact, one could say really no good, strong supporting evidence for the idea that depression is a biological condition. And it seemed to me, certainly with the pushback that I got after the book, that what some psychiatrists were trying to do was to shut down debate about the nature of depression so that people wouldn't realize that that is the state of affairs.
And maybe you just made it clear and I am just not catching it, but why? Psychiatrists are scientists, they're medical doctors, they're very well trained, they're typically highly intelligent people with good intentions. Why is there such this strong attachment to this treatment intervention?
Another good question. So, what distinguishes psychiatrists from other people who work in the mental health field is their medical training. So psychiatrists are generally, subscribe to the idea that mental health problems are like other illnesses, so that it legitimates them being doctors and medical doctors having a role in the treatment of people with mental health problems. And what's interesting is that antidepressants in particular seem to embody this idea of the medical nature of mental health problems for many psychiatrists.
Right.
Because, for example, other treatments like benzodiazepines in this country, psychiatrists aren't terribly invested in prescribing benzodiazepines or, trying to defend them and recognize the dangers of dependence and all that sort of thing. And I know that many psychiatrists are quite disconcerted by the sort of huge promotion of ADHD and drug treatment for ADHD at the moment. But most psychiatrists want to believe that antidepressants are effective treatments. And I think it's because depression, or something that, sort of general distress that we currently label as depression, it makes up the bulk of problems that psychiatrists see in an outpatient setting. And I write a bit in my book about how important it was for psychiatrists a few decades ago to extricate themselves from the old asylums and the arena of treating people with really severe mental health problems such as psychosis and schizophrenia, which were what afflicted most of the inmates of those, old long stay asylums / hospitals. And this was because these places had come to be perceived as custodial institutions that no one got better from, and therefore it didn't really help psychiatrists to improve their status within medicine. So therefore, psychiatrists in the 1960s onwards tried to cultivate an outpatient practice, and depression, or as I say, sort of the general distress that we now refer to as depression, made up the bulk of that. And of course, psychiatrists wanted to have something medical to offer people in that situation. So I think
Yeah.
that's the main reason, that being able to offer a medical treatment such as a drug is what distinguishes psychiatrists from other mental health professionals and therapists and people who might other people who work in this area. But I also suppose it is it is a common human trait to want to help people. And when someone comes in distress to see a doctor or someone with a medical qualification, what you're taught as a doctor, as a medical student, is to prescribe a physical treatment such as a drug. So that's how psychiatrists know how to help people. And it's become, because of this massive promotional campaign by the pharmaceutical industry, it's become what people expect as well. So sometimes it's difficult for psychiatrists not to prescribe something, even if they think there might be other options. So I think that there are all these factors, this sort of drive for professional status, but also this desire to do something to help, that
Right.
that mean that psychiatrists want to believe that they have specific medical treatments for a condition such as depression.
Mm. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. What's kind of standing out to me from what you just said is there's a certain entrenchment in a paradigm that gets well established probably during medical training. There's a certain preservation of status that comes with the prescription pad that distinguishes psychiatrists from all other mental health care professionals. There's the general pattern within the history of psychology or psychiatry, excuse me, of um, crises of legitimacy and attempts to salvage the reputation of the field. And this trend, especially like in the US, especially with the DSM, especially starting with the DSM-3 in 1980, there's kind of a clear difference starting then where the language becomes much more medicalized. And a concrete example of that is the removal of the word neurosis. I know you addressed that in the book as well, and I've long thought about that, how, the first couple editions of the DSM, there were still remnants of psychoanalysis and of psychology. But starting with the DSM-3, there was this departure from that and an attempt to establish itself as a legitimate medical field